They thought it would be just another hearing. More political noise, more finger-pointing, and another headline forgotten by morning. But when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stood up, binder in hand, and said, "I'm here to talk about the truth, not the theater," everything changed. In less than 2 minutes, she unraveled a paper trail so detailed, so damning, it left Marjorie Taylor Greene visibly trembling, and America holding its breath. This wasn't a speech. This was a surgical strike, live, on air, with receipts. What followed wasn't just a political clash. It was a reckoning, the kind that turns viewers into witnesses and headlines into history. Greene tried to shout her way out, but Jasmine didn't flinch. She flipped the page and flipped the narrative. If you believe in accountability, in courage, in truth, finally speaking louder than power, then hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Because after what you're about to witness, silence won't be an option. You could feel it the moment the doors opened. Capitol Hill had seen its fair share of hearings, tense, political, often theatrical. But that morning, there was a different energy humming through the halls of the Oversight Committee. Not loud, not chaotic, but tight, wound, like a bowstring pulled just a bit too far. Reporters whispered from their corners, glancing nervously between their phones and the long mahogany table. C-SPAN cameras were locked in position. The interns, the clerks, the members themselves, they all moved with that same anxious choreography, as if every glance and breath carried more weight than usual, because they had heard the rumors that Representative Jasmine Crockett hadn't just come to debate. She had come with something else entirely. Jasmine walked in without a sound, binder in hand, black blazer crisp, eyes steady. She didn't smile. She didn't nod. She just moved to her seat with the kind of calm that doesn't need to announce itself, a calm that says, "I didn't come here to perform. I came here to reveal." Across from her, Marjorie Taylor Greene sat already stiff in her chair, flanked by 2 aides and a thin stack of documents that looked more like props than preparation. Her expression was 1 part contempt, 1 part caution. Maybe she didn't know what was coming, but she knew it wasn't good. Jasmine set her binder down like it was sacred. A mother might recognize the way she handled it, like it held not just papers, but proof. Like it was more than politics. It was protection, a weapon, a shield, a key. The hearing was called to order with the usual formalities. The chairman cleared his throat. Names were entered into the record. A flag stood silent in the background, unmoved, but looming, like a quiet reminder of the weight of the Constitution. But everyone in that room, from the senior lawmakers to the youngest staffers, was waiting for one thing, her turn to speak. And when it came, Jasmine didn't fumble. She leaned forward slowly, adjusted her microphone, and spoke with the kind of restraint that makes the world lean in. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman." She looked up, direct, clear, centered. "I'd like to address what I believe is a serious breach of public trust by a sitting member of this chamber." It was like someone flipped a switch. Heads turned, cameras zoomed, aides froze with pens in midair. The tension, already taut, now stretched to breaking. Jasmine's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "This isn't political theater, and this isn't a witch hunt. It's not personal." She paused, eyes locking with Greene across the table. "It's about honesty, about accountability, about what we tell the American people when we think they're not listening." Marjorie Taylor Greene shifted, slightly, but noticeably. One hand crept toward the stack of papers she had brought, as if reaching for a lifeline. "And I'm referring specifically," Jasmine continued, flipping the binder open, "to a series of campaign finance discrepancies and private travel reimbursements that have not been disclosed in accordance with House ethics guidelines." Another pause. Not a murmur, not a cough, just silence. Jasmine's voice cut through it like glass. "Let me begin with the numbers." And just like that, the flood began. From that moment forward, this wasn't just another hearing. It was something else. It was a moral audit. It was a reckoning. And for the older Americans watching from their homes, some seated in recliners with folded arms, others with hands clasped tightly in prayer, they could feel it too. This wasn't noise. It was the sound of someone standing up, Someone finally standing up, not with rage, not with volume, but with documentation. There's something deeply American about that, about the image of a woman, young, black, composed, righteous, holding a binder full of receipts in a room where too many lies had gone unchecked for too long. Jasmine spoke not just to the committee, but to the living rooms of older patriots who remembered Watergate, who remembered when hearings meant something, when truth wasn't just background noise. And her words reached them. This wasn't a rant. This was scripture for those who still believe the Constitution matters. I will lay out the financials, the dates, the beneficiaries, the shell firms, and the exact amounts, because when taxpayer trust is broken, it must be repaired in full daylight. The committee room had never been quieter, and across from her, Marjorie Taylor Greene blinked, not because she was ready, but because she wasn't, and the storm was just beginning. According to FEC records, Jasmine began, her fingers gently flipping the page, between April and August of last year, Representative Greene's campaign funneled approximately $128,700 to a consultancy listed as Oak Star Strategies. She paused. This firm, ladies and gentlemen, has no physical address, no verified personnel, and 2 disconnected phone lines. A low rustle moved through the chamber, barely audible, but unmistakable. Marjorie stiffened, leaning toward her mic. That's a legitimate consulting business, she snapped. We vetted them. Jasmine nodded slowly. I'd believe you, Congresswoman, if I hadn't filed 3 Freedom of Information Act requests, spoken with state regulators, and traced the LLC registration. She looked down at her binder. The registered owner of Oak Star Strategies is a Mr. Ronald Edgerton. Silence. Jasmine glanced up. Does that name ring a bell? It should. He is your brother-in-law, married to your husband's sister. And his firm was founded just 3 weeks before the first payment cleared. Gasps now. Audible, not whispered, not speculative. Real. The kind that signals a shift from curiosity to concern. Marjorie's hands gripped the armrests of her chair. You don't have proof, she said. Jasmine raised one eyebrow, then tapped her index finger on the binder. I do, and so does the clerk. The room froze as Jasmine passed a thin printout down the table. The clerk picked it up, read silently, and nodded. Jasmine continued. Let's talk about the Coeur d'Alene trip. She flipped again. 3 nights, 5-star resort, private jet, tail number N549TW. Aides in the back were now visibly taking notes. A camera light flicked on, phones buzzed. That jet, Jasmine said, belongs to a firm under current IRS investigation, Orbit Holdings. The flight, accommodations, and services were all paid for in full. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing slightly. None of which appear on your financial disclosures. Marjorie looked left, then right. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. You want to know what was listed instead? Jasmine asked, flipping to the next tab. Strategic policy planning. That's what your campaign reported. But when I contacted the resort, they had a different note. VIP guest, private real estate tour. A wave of murmurs, chairs shifting, jawlines tightening. Marjorie finally found her voice. I was invited as a guest. I didn't pay. Exactly, Jasmine said. And that, Congresswoman, is the problem. She let the silence stretch. Accepting gifts from a firm under federal investigation while sitting on the oversight committee isn't just unethical. It's grounds for a formal ethics complaint. The chairman blinked. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Jasmine turned another page. And then there's the Scottsdale trip. Marjorie shook her head, almost laughing. Are you serious? We're doing this now? Jasmine didn't answer. She raised the paper in her hand. Flight records, hotel invoices, and this, she held up a photo, a snapshot of you and Leonard March, CEO of Orbit Holdings, toasting whiskey at a rooftop bar. The gallery gasped again. A reporter whispered, that's the guy under investigation. The photo made its way to the clerk. Marjorie sputtered. That was a public event, a conference. Jasmine read aloud from the hotel record. Guest of Mr. March, room 2419, comped. She let the words hang. Greene slammed her fist against the table. This is a damn smear campaign. Jasmine kept her gaze level. Then explain why the payment trail from March's holding company shows a $7,800 deposit into your husband's construction firm 12 days later. Silence again. Jasmine turned toward the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I request unanimous consent to enter the financial records and flight manifests into the official hearing documents. The chairman, pale now, nodded. So entered. And then Jasmine did something no one expected. She closed her binder. This isn't about politics, she said, turning toward the press section. It's about who we say we are, when we ask the American people to trust us. Marjorie didn't speak. She couldn't. The truth had spoken first. No one breathed, not really. The air in the hearing room had shifted, like a storm that hadn't yet broken, but had made its presence known in the static. The tension wasn't just political, it was physical. You could feel it in the way hands trembled slightly over pens, in the way a clerk blinked twice as if steadying himself for what might come next. Reporters no longer scribbled notes, they typed, fast. Jasmine Crockett hadn't raised her voice, she hadn't thrown accusations. She had only opened a binder and let the facts walk across the room, and now she opened it again. I'd like to revisit a few recorded conversations, she said, her tone even as if she were reading the weather. These were submitted earlier this morning to the committee clerk. They've been verified by 2 separate forensic audio experts. I'll begin with the March 9th transcript. Marjorie Taylor Greene's chair creaked under her shift. Not out of comfort, out of nerves. Jasmine pulled out a printout. In this call, she said, a staffer of Representative Greene discusses rerouting PAC money from the Freedom Rising Committee into a private account belonging to an LLC called Bay Rise Investments. The chairman furrowed his brow. Bay Rise, Jasmine continued, is registered in Florida to one Ronald Edgerton, the same brother-in-law we discussed earlier. Gasps again, but this time lower, heavier. Like they weren't just watching, they were sinking into the weight of what was being revealed. She continued. The staffer says, and I quote, "We need to shift the $20,000 before the contractor deadline. She's got crews lined up for the beach house and they're getting anxious." Marjorie slammed her palm down. You're twisting private staff chatter. Jasmine didn't flinch. Would you like me to play the audio, Congresswoman? The room went dead. Even the chairman looked stunned. You have the actual audio? Jasmine nodded. Mr. Clerk, if you please. There was a brief click as a speaker came to life. And then, a voice. Calm. Male. No, just have it filed through Bay Rise. She wants the contractors covered before month end, and the posse won't raise any red flags if it's labeled as strategic consulting. Then silence. The recording ended, but the damage was only just beginning. Greene's face flushed. She reached for her water. Didn't drink. Context, she said, voice cracking. You're offering no context for internal planning. I'll provide more, Jasmine said. Let's move to the July 7th call. This time, she didn't wait for permission. Another audio clip began. Just flag the transfer under security advisory. The guy's never going to speak to us again anyway. He's in San Diego, no contract. Just float the 50. She wants it off the books before mid-July. Someone audibly gasped. A staffer in the back coughed and knocked over their water bottle. Jasmine picked up the thread calmly. That transfer was logged as a $50,000 payment to a firm called Pacific Front Advisory. The company has no web presence, no contract on file, and its listed founder was convicted of wire fraud in 2018. Marjorie shook her head furiously. This is a setup, an ambush. Jasmine's voice didn't rise, but her next line hit like thunder. And yet, every receipt lines up, every flight, every name, every timestamp. She held up a page. We don't just have your name, we have your signature. She turned to the chairman. I'd like to enter the transcript and recordings into the official record. He didn't hesitate. So entered. Jasmine looked at Greene. Would you like to make a statement now? Greene stood up, abruptly. This is political warfare, she shouted. You all sit there, acting like you're saints, while you weaponize paperwork and staff gossip. Jasmine stood too, calm, composed. You're welcome to clarify anything you believe is false, under oath. I don't have to sit here and be humiliated, Greene barked. No, Jasmine said, but you do have to sit here and answer. And that's when it happened. The photo. Jasmine turned the next page. This, she said, lifting the image, was posted on July 21st, then deleted 3 hours later. The screen in the hearing room flickered on. A photo appeared. Greene. Sitting at a sunlit terrace, sunglasses on, a whiskey glass in hand. Next to her, Nicholas Averill, CEO of Westbridge Energy. The caption read, "Power lunch with one of the best minds in energy policy." Jasmine said, 3 weeks prior, you voted against the Clean Water Accountability Act, a bill that would have directly impacted firms like Westbridge. Greene staggered backward half a step. I never met with that man privately. The photo was geotagged. El Encanto Resort, Santa Barbara. I was there with staff. Jasmine held up another document. The resort lists only 2 guests under your booking, yourself and Nicholas Averill. A soft, stunned groan moved across the room. Marjorie's voice was barely a whisper now. This is character assassination. No, Jasmine replied. This is accountability. It started with a twitch. Greene's fingers tapped against the wood of the committee desk, lightly at first, like a nervous tick, then harder, faster. The tension in her jaw tightened with each passing second. Her eyes, once sharp and defiant, darted around the room like someone searching for an escape route. But there was none. The photo still glowed on the screen behind her. The binder still lay open in front of Jasmine Crockett. The silence of the committee was not indifference, it was judgment. It was the sound of a storm no longer forming, but crashing down. You want answers? Greene barked suddenly. Here's your answer. I have been targeted from the day I walked into this building, and now I'm being ambushed in front of the nation with edited files and gossip. She shoved back her chair. The metal legs screeched across the floor, a shrill punctuation to her outburst. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't even blink. Greene's meltdown was happening, but it had nothing to do with pressure from her colleagues. This was the unraveling of someone who believed for too long that no one would ever hold her accountable. You sit there acting all righteous, Greene spat, pointing a trembling finger at Jasmine, as if you've never made a deal, never met with donors, never benefited from politics. Jasmine's expression didn't change. I didn't say I was perfect, she said softly. I said I came with receipts. The room rippled, not a laugh, not quite, but the energy shifted. People in the room, reporters, staffers, even lawmakers, began to lean forward. This wasn't political performance anymore. This was exposure, live and in real time. Greene turned to the chairman. I demand the right to respond, uninterrupted. You've had multiple chances, he said, measured. You chose to raise your voice instead. I'm being slandered, she screamed. I have nothing to hide. Then clarify the bank transfers, Jasmine replied. Clarify the plane rides. Clarify the silence on your financial disclosures. Clarify why Nicholas Averill paid for your resort suite the same week his company lobbied you. Greene was panting now. Her voice cracked. You think you're clever. You think you're calm. But you're just a pawn. Just another puppet for the deep state and leftist media. Jasmine raised one eyebrow. Congresswoman, this binder isn't politics. It's paperwork. That landed like a stone. The older members of the committee, those who had seen decades of hearings, stirred. Some nodded. Some exchanged glances. One even folded his arms and sat back, as if waiting to see how far this would go. Greene, by contrast, was unspooling. She jabbed her finger again toward Jasmine. You think you're some hero? You're a nobody. A junior rep on a mission to grandstand for Twitter likes. You've got nothing but headlines. Jasmine took a single step forward. I have something better than headlines. I have truth. And truth, Congresswoman, doesn't need to shout. Boom. The words hit hard. Not flashy, not loud, but final. Greene froze. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. But the air had left the room, for her anyway. Jasmine turned slightly toward the committee. If the American people are expected to live by the law, then those who write it must too. That's not politics. That's principle. Greene erupted. You think I'm scared of you? I don't think you're scared of me, Jasmine replied. I think you're scared of the evidence. A hush fell. Greene looked around for allies, but the faces around her were neutral, or worse, blank. Her staffer, the one in the corner with the tablet, avoided her eyes. She sat, hard, like a fall, like the weight of truth finally cracked the image she tried to uphold. Let's talk about Tampa, Jasmine said. Greene's head snapped up. Jasmine opened the next tab in her binder. Atlantic East Solutions, LLC. A third account opened in your name. Deposits recorded on August 12th, 3 days after you voted against a rental regulation reform bill. She held up a chart. The LLC is connected to a short-term property in Tampa. Receipts show it booked 41 nights last quarter. Multiple bookings tied to donors and PACs. No disclosures, no travel logs, no tax records. Greene was silent. Jasmine continued. I spoke to the contractor who remodeled the kitchen. He thought it was a business Airbnb, but it's owned by you. You're wrong, Greene said weakly. Then I welcome your correction, Jasmine replied. On record, with documents. But Greene offered none. There it was, the collapse. Not a breakdown of tears, but of deflection, of power, of the shield that had protected her, now shattered in front of millions. The hearing room emptied slowly, not like usual, no flurry of motion, no casual chatter, no quiet shuffling out the door. People lingered, lawmakers, staffers, even reporters just stood still, like witnesses to something sacred and shattering all at once, like people who knew they had seen a moment that would be written about long after the live stream ended. Jasmine Crockett didn't bask. She didn't gloat. She quietly gathered her notes, handed the binder to her aide, and walked out of the hearing room without saying a word to the press. Her silence was louder than any headline. Behind her, Greene remained seated, staring at the table as if expecting it to offer her a defense. By the time Jasmine returned to her office, her phone had already buzzed over 200 times. Messages from former lawmakers, legal scholars, constituents, some congratulating her, some shocked, some just typing a single word, finally. But Jasmine didn't respond. She turned her phone off and sat for a long time in the stillness of her office. No cameras, no audience, just her thoughts. Across the country, reactions rippled outward. In a barbershop in rural Mississippi, the hearing played again on loop, the sound of clippers drowned out by Jasmine's calm voice coming from a TV in the corner. That woman came in with a binder and made a grown representative fall apart, one customer muttered, half in awe. In a retirement community in Arizona, 3 women watched the replay with tissues in hand. She didn't flinch, one said. She didn't need to. Reminded me of Barbara Jordan, another whispered, like watching dignity walk into the room. Cable news anchors didn't know what to do. Some tried to spin it as partisan warfare. Others just sat there stunned. The evidence was too detailed. The facts were too plain. Jasmine hadn't yelled. She hadn't thrown insults. She had simply prepared. That night, Greene canceled all media appearances. Her communications director offered a statement blaming political targeting and false narratives, but no one listened. Even her most loyal backers were cautious. A whisper campaign began within her own party. By the following week, 3 moderate Republicans called privately for an internal ethics investigation. The Speaker's office remained quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that meant meetings were happening behind closed doors. Jasmine, meanwhile, flew home to Texas. No press tour, no fanfare. She went straight to her district office. That Friday, she sat in a housing complaint meeting with a group of elderly residents who had mold issues in their public housing unit. You're not exhausted? Her aide asked quietly. I'm always exhausted, she said, but I'm not done. She smiled and went back to taking notes from a grandmother named Mrs. Harris, who'd brought photos of leaking pipes. Because Jasmine Crockett hadn't come to Washington to play the game, she came to remind people how to win with the truth. It didn't take long before the fallout grew louder than the hearing itself. Social media surged. Hashtags like Yawardi Binder Truth, Crockett Receipts, and Dadash Bars Packgate trended across platforms. Even users who didn't follow politics reposted clips of Jasmine's calm takedown, turning them into TikTok soundbites and memes with captions like, "When the receipts hit harder than the yelling." High school students quoted her in civics class. College professors added the hearing to their government curriculum. Church groups prayed for courage like hers. Marjorie Taylor Greene's approval ratings began to slide, slowly at first, then in free fall. In her district, a local conservative paper ran the headline, "When righteousness quietly walks in, rage walks out." At a Rotary Club lunch in Georgia, one man stood up, a longtime donor, and asked his table, "If this had been a Democrat, wouldn't we be demanding they resign?" No one answered, but no one argued. The Ethics Committee announced a formal review the next Thursday. No press conference, just a short, clinical statement. The committee has voted to open an inquiry into Representative Greene's campaign finances and disclosures. Greene released a furious social media video that night. She blamed everyone, Democrats, Renos, the press. But her voice cracked more than once. Her hair was unkempt. And the comments section, once a wall of fire emojis and blind support, was now filled with things like, "This isn't the fight we signed up for. If it's false, why not release the real documents? You got caught, just own it." Jasmine released nothing, no video, no tweet storm, just a single message on her official site. "To the people of Texas's 30th District, and to every American watching, I came into that hearing room with one goal, to tell the truth with proof. Thank you for believing in integrity. Thank you for demanding better. We're not done yet." That was it. And somehow, it said more than any televised interview ever could. In the weeks that followed, invitations poured in. NYU, Howard, Georgetown, CNN town halls. Jasmine declined most. She chose to speak to her community first, churches, schools, senior centers. In Garland, Texas, she gave a short address at a town hall packed with standing room only attendees. The walls were lined with voters of every race, age, and income bracket. "I'm not here to talk about what happened in D.C., and she said, "I'm here to talk about what comes next, because power isn't the ability to shout the loudest, it's the ability to face the truth and not run." She paused. "I didn't walk into that hearing room to destroy anyone. I walked in so you'd know someone still believes that government should serve the governed, not the greedy." The room rose in applause, slow at first, then thunderous. And in the back row, an elderly man stood, leaning on his cane, a Vietnam vet, wearing a faded U.S. flag pin on his lapel. He raised a weathered hand and saluted. Tears streamed quietly down his face. "That's my Congresswoman," he said. And across the room, no one doubted it. If this story moved you, if you believe truth should still matter, even in a time of noise and spin, then stand with us. Leave a comment below, like the video, share this story, subscribe for more stories that put facts over fiction and integrity above ego. Because the truth doesn't need to shout, it just needs to be heard. And Jasmine Crockett, she made sure it was.